and always talk about the future of the DCEU, I would humbly like to pitch my next Batman movie in this
I've been
universe.
waiting for this. I've been waiting.
Now,
I want to hear it. What do you got?
I wanna put this before I do it. I'm not saying this is what they should do. I'm just saying what I would do. To me, this trilogy really has a lot of emotion in it, unlike any other Batman trilogy we ever seen. And there's a moment in this movie that I think Robert Pattinson just delivers on every time, is when he sees the mayor's son. It's He not only knows what that kid is going through, he is reliving it through that kid, and now he has a super vested interest in saving this kid. This kid is the first kid he saves at the end, when the whole stadium is flooded, where he takes out his little, torch and lights the way for people. That mayor's son is the first person he gets to. When I think about what Gotham is now it's, in kind of a no man's land state. I think about what happens with power vacuums, whether it's social, whether it's crime. I think that's what the next movie is going to be about. Clearly, it's about power vacuums. But what I want out of it is I wanted to touch on the grift of hope and how people play on the idea of hope. If Batman is now deciding, I'm going to be a symbol of hope, he should have to now argue his way through that with someone who's providing a false hope through different means. When I think about the grift of mentors and life coaches, I'm reminded of Jordan Peterson. Not in a negative way, 'cause I do like some of the stuff he writes in his books, but I do disagree on some other things. But I think about a Jordan Peterson type. This is a dude who uses mythology, the Bible, to make really interesting points about human psychology and where we are as a society. There's someone else who uses literature to get his point across, and that's one Jarvis Tench. What I want is for this Jarvis Tench to be pitching this idea of Wonderland, what Gotham can be. Gotham's issues are not physical, they're mental. Crime starts in the mind. And if we are to conquer fear, we are to conquer the mind, we're going to need to do some drugs. This is a guy who's pro psychedelic research. Who a lot of these dudes exist today. People do MDMA treatments, all that now. This is a guy who knows how the CIA's MK Ultra operation worked. He's from that long line of scientists who've experimented with psychedelics, learned how to use mind control, and he is literally coming out like he's on the Joe Rogan Experience. He's that kind of guy. This guy comes to Gotham with an idea. Like we talked about the Riddler, his idea is out there of Gotham. Here's a guy who's building a new idea of what Gotham can be if we just learn to elevate beyond our means. He starts it starts as a building, it soon becomes a community. This is a guy who's telling people how to live better. Clean your room, get yourself together, get a job. He's toxic positivity. But what people don't realize is, just like, with Jim Jones's church, it starts off as a small group and then becomes a religion. So now there's this growing cult going on in Gotham at their most hopeless. What gets Batman involved is that he's been following the mayor's family, the wife and the son. And these two people fall into that grift of hope. They end up at Wonderland. And Bruce knows he can't go in there as Batman to fight this whole thing head on because he doesn't know anything that's going on. Like, there's no way to investigate. There's a really close-knit community. But if they're willing to accept the mayor's son, maybe Bruce Wayne can talk his way into that door. And now Bruce Wayne is spending time with this Wonderland cult. Now, secondary plot going on. Catwoman returns to Gotham to work alongside Jim Gordon because a guy named Black Mass is leaving Bloodhaven to come and take the power vacuum in Gotham. He's coming after the Penguin, so now Catwoman and Jim Gordon have to work together. Now Jim has to figure out, how do I work with a second mass vigilante, and they develop a certain relationship that will, I guess, come into play down the line. But we also see him talk to her about their relationship with Batman and vice versa. But they're stuck protecting the Penguin, essentially. I want the Penguin to be the Mickey Doyle like he was in Boardwalk. He was the funny gangster that just somehow lived all the time. Everyone dies, but Mickey Doyle doesn't until like the last season. But he survived like a good majority of the wildest deaths I've ever seen on Boardwalk. So now while they're investigating that, Bruce has now gotten deeper into his cult. He ends up being drugged by the Mad Hatter, Jarvis Tench. And he finds out there's this upper echelon part of the cult called the Wonderland Gang. And they are essentially scientists and doctors who specialize in this shit. So they're originally using Bruce to get to his money, but what they start to realize is there's something deeper here. He's hiding a bigger secret. I also kind of want to flash to like visions of Bruce and like what Gotham would have been like with his family. These psychedelic hallucinations are showing him what life could have been like with his family. One of my favorite Superman stories is For the Man Who Has Everything. And you see like what his life would have been like had Krypton not exploded. We've never really seen what Bruce's life would be like if his parents never died. This would be kind of an interesting way to tap into that and to learn more about Bruce and what he feels was taken away from him. What he feels has been taken away from this kid that he's been following who's joined this cult. And throughout this time, you're finding out that the Black Mask is actually moving drugs into Gotham, which is what the Mad Hatter has been using all this time. So they've got to connect. So to stop drugs in Gotham, Gordon and Catwoman have to go after the Wonderland Gang as a part of the whole operation. Selina finds Bruce Wayne, doesn't know he's Batman yet, but when she gets him out of his psychedelic trip, he puts on a mask, still a little high, and starts fighting down the hallway. And she realized, holy shit, this dude's fucking Batman. Because she hasn't really figured out all of the Batman, or they haven't let us know that. So in this situation, she finds out then. After taking down the Wonderland Gang, he goes at the Black Mask, which becomes this whole, he's got the Penguin somewhere, and now they've got to stop him. To me, I think him following that kid into a journey of self-discovery, because listen, we already know he's got a bit of a thing with substances. At the end of the third act, we see him inject himself with looks to be venom. He goes nuts. He gets crazy. They have to stop him from being down one of the Riddler's henchmen. So we know already he's not foreign to the idea of performance enhancing drugs. So it would make more sense for him to be willing to go through the Mad Hatter's treatment just so he can know what it is. But indirectly, he ends up in a place where, while they're trying to scheme stuff out of him, he's actually finding a level of acceptance. At this Gotham that I imagine will never be. And I have to let that go. It's what he's dealing with at the end of this movie. And I think to visually show it would be really dope. And I think just having a Mad Hatter who hasn't been used before, in this era where psychedelics are more and more of a conversation, you get around the technology angle that's always been a little goofy. Black Mask, to me, I like Black Mask. Never really saw him as a major dude. I like using him as a guy who's going after Penguin. Because I like the idea of Penguin being so scared he has to turn to Catwoman and Gordon. And I think Black Mask has the physicality where you would actually fear if he got his hands on Penguin. So it juxtaposes the Mad Hatter and Black Mask very well. But I think it's all about that. I think Bruce is now deeply processing a lot of things in the second year and I guess third year of this movie. He's processing the real psychological questions we've never watched him do before. And I kind of want to see a sequel that keeps going there. And using the mayor's son, I think, is a fair way to get him to do that. That would be my sequel.
Okay. I'm going to tell you that after listening to that, I now see our fundamental differences as creators, right? I see our fundamental differences, and that I am, and I don't have any problem with this, right? That I lean more towards a corporate thinking, like, okay, what's going to make money?
Yeah.
Right? Like you are very creative, that is very creative. That's like everyone's gonna love that, and I'm gonna tell you something. That script is gonna circulate all over the industry, and it won't be picked up. But you know what's gonna happen to it? That script, they're gonna nibble off of ideas off that script for the next cartoon, for the next show like Nightwing, and they're gonna use the Black Mask stuff. They're gonna use the test stuff. Like it's going. I can't remember, but there was a script that was like that.
Yeah.
Where Hollywood was like, they didn't take it. But they used so many elements off of it, right? Like I want to say the last thing I know that kind of happened to was the Magneto one-shot film.
Yeah.
I know that happened with that they just kind of cherry-picked a bunch of stuff off of it, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely love like moving forward. I would say what my sequel would be.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like what you did with the Tesh part, and I would add him to it, but he's the guy behind Drops.
Gotcha.
And we're going to see, right? What like look at like his vision, like with the DA, like how he was viewing stuff when he had the drops, right? The drops, right? So I'm gonna push that part, right? Like there was some again here, stage 3 now. Like we've already put that out. We got that. So now we're gonna get the citizens, all acted up. So I was actually thinking about the drug aspect, right? Yeah. So now I just didn't know who was going to do it. But boom, Tesh, the drops, he has this thing. Who's funding it? Like we're looking like, who the fuck is funding these guys? Like where are they getting this money? Because again, that's still a part of it. Yeah. Right?
They're part of the conspiracy.
It's part of the conspiracy moving forward, right? And the fun, right? Like, wait, so is the fun still there? Who's siphoning this? Like, is it? Wait, and so the thing is that I want to have a guy, right, rise up. And so my story will take place, boom, right after, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right off the top, it is an amalgamation of Court of Owls, but the story is truthfully after No Man's Land.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And the rebuild of Gotham.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, the Lex Luthor type of my story that's going to come in and infuse all this money and all of this and it's going to turn Gotham into this city, like, oh, shoot, it's actually going to be the character from the Court of Owls.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be him, but I'm going to, you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to put it in that context, but I'm actually going to use the Luthor model from the No Man's Land after story, right?
Yeah.
And so then, but the background is like he doesn't see anything going on with that. That's just kind of like happening. Yeah. But this drops and everybody's on this drug and like try to figure out who's moving it in, where's it coming from, and like that's happening. And that he doesn't see, kind of like what Alfred said, like, dude, you guys do stuff as Bruce too. Yeah. Like, and this stuff is happening underneath his nose as Bruce, and like he's like this guy is like, oh hey Bruce, and like maybe he even knows him, like kind of the Court of Owls kind of thing, right? And so again, like juxtaposing the Riddler and being an orphan, and then this guy, because I don't want to spoil anything for people out there who haven't read Court of Owls, but again, another mirror. Yeah, read it. Another mirror of Bruce, because that's what a lot of this stuff is. Like he's making these people in his image. Bruce is God. Yeah. So of this world. So I think that's what I would do. I would have that, like the black mare chick. I think she comes up with the illness. I think, like somebody gives her drops and they get her out of there. Like, oh, she's a drug addict. What? Like, and he's like, wait, what's going on? And it led him to that. And he's like, oh shoot, this whole time, this is all connected. Again, kind of not seeing the pieces and the clues. Yeah. And then pushing, Oz is still there. Like, he thinks he's a part. He's like, nah, my hands are clean. Like, and, he's like, fuck, I'm always wrong with this guy.
Yeah.
And so, and then just furthering that, I think, but we need another action set piece, like the chase. We need a big thing of that. And I clearly could see, like, kind of like the Raid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And of the chemical place that might be a whole organization that's actually manufacturing it.
Yeah.
You know, and where Tesh works and where he's developing it.
Yeah.
And like he's Batman going into this building and multiple layers of hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These guys are in there protecting their assets and just like kind of like even the Daredevil scene going into that building.
Definitely.
And like and so we see that like, yo, holy shit. And another thing that I think we missed when we talked about the references, a lot of people got that wrong when they were like, oh, he's biting off a Daredevil, right? With the red that they did originally. That's actually Dark Victory.
Yeah.
If people go back and look at those covers and like the red and then the grayscale, it was amazing. That's what they were doing. That was an homage to Dark Victory again, year one. So that's what I would do. My big action set piece for that film I would clearly steal from the Raid, and I think Warner Brothers, don't they have the Raid? Isn't that theirs?
Should be. They don't have.
I think it's theirs. Yeah, I think it's theirs, and so that would be my thing. Maybe Selena comes back. I think I kind of want to freshen it up. The only like returning person that I would want to see is definitely Oz.
Yeah.
I definitely want to see Oz back. I don't want to see Riddler. I don't want to see Joker at all.
I don't want to see them either.
I don't want to see either.
I've got this part. In the Wonderland gang, there is a Solomon Grundy there. But he's like a big dude that just says born on a Tuesday because he's affected by the narcotics.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm still in that I'm going to put that in my corporate sequel.
You can have that for
I'm going to put that. Like, he's going to be like, I might replace, like, so maybe even the twins have been promoted or they're, you know, and that, and so now they're the new guy at Oz's spot is this slow, dim-witted guy, Solomon. You know what I mean?
I like that.
And to introduce, me like it. Yeah. Me like it. I'm taking that for my corporate sequel.
I like it. Working the way corporations do. That's what we do.
Yes. Yes.